that would mark part two, the West. Your first pick, buddy.
Ooh, this one was tough. Obviously,
It
my Suns
was.
were first. My Suns were first last year, which is very, very exciting. I don't think that's going to happen again this year. I'm going to go with the boring pick and go with the Golden State Warriors here.
Okay.
So you look at their roster from last year. They lost Gary Payton and they lost Otto Porter. Those are really the main things they lost. However, we saw it in pieces last year. I think they've got the pieces to replace both of them. I think Moses Moody is just going to slide right into that defensive stopper role that Payton had. And I think he's going to maybe even be better just because I think he has more intrigue at both sides of the court. Maybe not defensively, but offensively. Moody's also got a better body type, I think, than Payton. Obviously, Payton played at the 4, he played at the 5, technically, that kind of stuff. But Moses Moody is more the prototypical NBA wing. Klay Thompson will start the season, which is good to see. Obviously, I really hope he returns to. I don't know if he'll ever be prime Klay again, just because he's starting to get older. But at the same time, I think it's exciting for basketball that he's going to play the full season. Steph Curry is here. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a run at MVP this year, just because he can, because he's Steph Curry. He's the greatest shooter of all time. He's just amazing. Jordan Poole is here. Off-season kind of stuff is kind of because of him and the whole Draymond Green situation, which we haven't really even touched on at all, but I don't really think it's one of those things that's going to matter. This is first world problems, as we like to say. I think they're going to be just fine. When it comes to Otto Porter, I mentioned earlier, he's gone. Jonathan Kuminga, I think, a little bit of a different player for sure, but Kuminga's going to get minutes, which I think is exciting for this team. James Wiseman, so far, is healthy. I think that's kind of scary for the league, that if he is healthy and he fulfills his potential, I don't think anybody can beat the Warriors, but of course, health is the thing with them. I really like their depth they added too, though. JaMychal Green is a solid enough piece. They still have Kevon Looney at the 5, of course. Iguodala's decided to return. I think he's pretty much just going to be Udonis Haslem for this team, or at least I hope so, because other players need to be playing more. One of the best signings of the offseason, Dante DiVincenzo. I don't know how they got him for what they got him for. I wanted him badly. I think every team would like to have somebody like him. He's going to be a very annoying player to play against when he's the 4th or 5th guard off the bench, and he could probably start for a lot of teams in the league. So I just think they have enough depth, and they have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins, I didn't even mention. I think the confidence from the finals run may help Wiggins take a step forward this year. Not necessarily all-star starter kind of season, but I think he'll be a very good player.
No, I mean, you pointed out all those names, and it's like what I was talking about with the more well-rounded team on steroids. Besides, I will say, because Wiseman is more of a question mark, so they are a bit thin on bigs, even though Looney was out of his mind last playoffs, but still, considering how many great bigs there are in the playoffs, I know this is a standings, more regular season. I'm just kind of projecting ahead here. That's the only thing that worries me about their team, but I'm super high on Moody myself. Obviously, Poole's awesome, and that drama went on, but me and you are of the mindset that either it won't matter enough to counteract how deep they are on top of how much top-end talent they have. And I'm glad you had them at 1, actually, because I didn't want to be alone there. I didn't have them at 1 at the end, but they were in my debate the whole time. It shouldn't be that much of a debate. They're defending champions, but I don't know. Just they're so good, man. They're electric on offense while being amazing on defense, and they just play the right way. The only question mark at this point is if the Draymond thing does have a super profound effect, which we don't think it will, but it could. So
it's possible, yeah.
It definitely could.
The one thing I will mention, 2 points, is you talk about the big situation, and I agree with you, but I feel like we've had this discussion for years now, and it never seems to actually matter.
Right.
If Looney gets hurt, then yes, I get that, but Kevon Looney's actually been pretty durable. And still, like JaMychal Green, I think that's why they brought him in. I think he can definitely be like the Bielitsa of last year if he needs to. A little
Yeah,
bit
I mean, they
different player.
did start Otto Porter at the 5 at a certain point. Well, 4 or 5 because Draymond. But you know, like, yeah, that is why
Yeah,
they go and get Green to replace that.
yeah. And then of course, the Goblin is still there as assistant coach, Kenny Atkinson. I think that's an important return for them with Mike Brown leaving. I think it's important to still have that experience. And Steve Kerr is still coach, obviously. So I mean, they're probably the best run organization in basketball, if not sports, right now. So I just have no reason to not expect them to be at least 2, if not 1.
Yeah, and I'll just say one very last thing on them is it can't be understated what you said about Clay. The fact that he had a full off season and could start the year, like, gosh, that really helps. So my number 2 pick, who was actually my number 1 seed, and I'm going all fanboy mode again, Pat, but I got Nuggets, man. Got the
I had a
Nuggets.
feel.
At first, because like before we started talking about this, and you know, I actually had to compile my list. Like, I didn't know if I would have them so high, but I don't know. Like, we were talking about them a few podcasts ago, and I'm just like, I love their configurations that they could play around with, like just getting Caldwell Pope and Bruce Brown, like you get 2 wings that do different things that help a lot, and then you have Aaron Gordon who could stop just about anyone. Jeff Green's still in the picture. The biggest question mark is their backup center DeAndre Jordan, but I don't know. I don't know if you've been seeing Zeke Naji this preseason, but he's kind of confirming what me and you were saying. Like, is Zeke Naji going to be one that steps up? Dude, he looks awesome. You know, me and you love Ish Smith. Like, Monty Morris, it did suck to let him go because Monty Morris has had big games for them, including last playoffs. But like, I feel like point guard play is so easy to find. Like, Ish Smith, he'll do fine for them in that role. Like, it was worth getting a 3-and-D player in Caldwell Pope, especially considering Jokic is the hub of your offense all the time. They're getting Porter Jr. back. They're getting Jamal Murray back. They won 48 games without those players last year, which is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I just think they're going to be an amazing team. Amazing.
Yeah, I was not this high on them, but I am high on them. Obviously, I think you're completely right about their roster construction. I think Caldwell Pope is just an incredible fit between Murray and Porter and Jokic. I think he might have his best shooting season in terms of percentage. I think it's just an incredibly team in terms of how they're going to fit. You know, we all love the Jokic and Gordon combination. I think with the more of the role that Caldwell Pope is going to play, it's going to help. Bruce Brown being on this team is just incredible. I still don't know how they got him for what they got him for and all that. I mean, I think Bruce Brown is somebody every team would love to have. The main reason why I'm concerned is, you know, Jamal Murray is coming back, and I really hope he stays healthy, but he's coming off a major injury. There's concerns there, and it's one of those things. I think Ish is fine as a backup point guard or even like a semi-backup point, or if you consider Bones a 1, which I really don't. I consider him more of a quickly kind of combo guard, that kind of guy. So, but if Murray's not able to play all the time, Ish at the 1 is not ideal. Honestly, I'd start Pope and Brown and just have Jokic just be full-time point guard, which would be pretty cool to see. I also have zero faith in Michael Porter Jr.'s health. I hate to say it. I just don't. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Bruce Brown and Caldwell Pope are on the floor together at the same time, because one of them will be playing the 3, which would also be cool. They still have Jeff Green, which I think is a nice little veteran piece. I think we're all there's no reason to really hate Jeff Green.
You mentioned Jokic at point guard. Like, all those names you just listed, you could have like Jokic, Bruce Brown, Caldwell Pope, Jeff Green, and Aaron Gordon. Like, that's not a lot of playmaking, but that's kind of crazy. Like, that could cover up for the defense.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're all praying that Zeke Naji is the backup center, but I've seen that DeAndre Jordan has been getting the starts in preseason when Jokic isn't playing, which it's nothing personal against DeAndre, because I do like him as a person, and he was once a very solid NBA player, but like, he is washed at this point. There's not really much else to say. And I just think Zeke Naj needs to start over him or start Jeff Green at the 5. It doesn't really matter. I just don't want to watch him. I just have a few more question marks than the team I have above them, and that's why I have them here. I also like Mike Malone quite a lot as a coach too, but I just have a few more question marks about them, which is why I have them below one other team.
Yeah, and to your point, DeAndre Jordan, man, when he started the other night and I was watching them one of their preseason games, it just hurt to watch. Really, it just did. I'm going to guess who you got as your next team. I'm going to guess in my head, so go ahead and say who it is.
So the one thing I am happy about is it makes my decision a lot easier because the Nuggets and another team were kind of my debate at 3. I had the Nuggets at 3, but I was kind of debating it. My number 2 team was pretty unquestionable. I had them debating with the Warriors at 1. I got the Memphis Grizzlies here.
Oh, you hit me with a surprise. Okay.
I'm assuming you thought I was going to go with the Suns.
No, but go on.
Well, I could guess, but I pretty much know who it is now. Grizzlies 2 seed last year had an incredible regular season. 56 wins. Really, they were talked about even more than the Suns with the 64 win team, which is obviously not necessarily deserved of how good the Suns are, but this team is really fun to watch. The main thing, of course, Kyle Anderson isn't here anymore, but I think they have the pieces to replace him. I didn't necessarily love their draft, to be honest. There's a few interesting players they drafted. I didn't necessarily love it, though, considering the pieces they did have available, the picks they had available. But they returned pretty much their entire core besides Kyle Anderson. Ja Morant is obviously still here. Maybe the most exciting player in basketball. I really hope health-wise it helps for him. But if it doesn't, they still have Tyus Jones, probably the best backup point guard in the league, to be honest. I mean, I really love Tyus Jones. I have for a long time. And it's weird because, he's almost going to be, well, he's still actually not too bad. He's 27 years old. So he's actually still somewhat young. But it seems like age is just making him better. And I think he's going to keep on doing that. He got a solid deal for himself. Desmond Bane is my guy. I fucking love Desmond Bane. Like,
love
oh,
Bane.
Man, if I could have his jump shot.
You know who Brandon loves? He loves Brandon Clark, and I just realized it's because they share a name. But yeah, well, Brandon Clark.
Yeah, Brandon Clark, I'm also a very big fan of. The question is, of course, do you consider starting him at the 5 over Steven Adams? I don't think that's the case. I think Steven Adams will hold on to the 5. I think Jaren will obviously be the 4. Jaren's health is a big part of this team. He did have surgery this offseason, which is a little bit of a concern. And yeah, it actually is a concern because his recovery time, he's probably not going to be ready for the start of the regular season. I didn't even realize that. So I still think without him, I think you might see some Brandon Clark minutes at the 4, which will be exciting. I'm a big fan of Brandon Clark. He was the one guy last year in that Warriors series who really was able to compete at the small ball role. Jaren did fine too. Of course, Dylan Brooks at the 3. I'm not necessarily saying it's not ideal because at the same time, he is a great defender. I just worry about him offensively and his commitment to just shooting shots, and he probably shouldn't be. I hope they talked to him. I hope he got better about it. But this is a young team that's only going to continue to grow, and I also think that they're not going to be afraid this year to maybe pull the trigger on a trade or two. Probably Dylan Brooks is the guy you'd look at getting moved on and adding another piece. And they just played so well last year. The only person they lost is Kyle Anderson. So I'm still pretty confident in them.
Yeah, I mean, did you mention Zaire Williams and all that? Because
oh man, yeah, that was a bit of a mission on my end. Zaire, I do like a lot, and I honestly hope he starts at the 3, but he probably won't.
Yeah, it sucks because Grizzlies. It seems like the past few years they've just been so good at developing talent, and then they lose a few veterans because they can't pay everyone, and people get lower on them. But I like your bold take of having them so high because you mentioned you didn't love their draft, which I'm not going to claim to be a draft expert, but so far I really like the players they drafted, and it's hard to bet against the Grizzlies draft record at this point. It just feels like whenever they lose a veteran, they get in some awesome younger player to replace him. And I just like love their theme of drafting players with certain deficiencies that other teams those deficiencies make them a deal breaker, but the Grizzlies are like, oh, we don't care, go ahead and come on in. Kenny Lofton Jr., you're like a huge dude that looks like you eat a lot of Cheetos, but you're actually a beast on the court, so we're gonna go ahead and get you on the team. David Roddy, you look like a football player. You're going to be a yoked brother next to Desmond Bane. Go ahead, get on the team. It's same thing with Bane. They got him so late because people were like, oh, he's got T-Rex arms. But, hey, became one of the best shooters in the NBA. So, yeah, I really like your pick here with the Grizzlies. I love the team. I actually thought that Steven Adams extension made some sense, too. What about you?
Undecided, but I think considering how young their team... Yeah, that's not bad. It's just one of those things, the way his role is in the NBA. But at the same time, I think he is valuable. I feel like Xavier Tillman could fill his role. But at the same time, with such a young team, I do think you need the veteran leadership. Also, don't underestimate, even though he's not going to play, Danny Green being around this team, I think will also help them. He's basically just going to be a coach because he's going to miss the entire season with the ACL injury.
Would he not be back by playoffs?
He could be, I guess.
Well, I guess he'd be washed at that point. It's 35. But yeah, no, that veteran leadership will be super valuable. I know we spent a long time with the Grizzlies. We love the Grizzlies, but I gotta mention Santi Aldama on their team, man. Have you seen any of him in preseason? It's just like him, John Conchar. It's like, yeah, we're gonna find these random guys that are actually awesome.
No, I haven't watched too much of him, unfortunately, but I do remember him playing last season, him being an intriguing player. So, see how many minutes he gets this year. I hope he gets a solid amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good pick. My next pick, who I had number 3, the Clippers. We've talked about the Clippers a lot this summer. Maybe I'm too high on the Clippers considering their past injury history. It's just that crazy depth, man. And then the wing depth. That's the important thing. That's the N.B.A. now. They got all of it. Definitely get if someone was concerned if it's like, there's actually too many guys here. Are people going to be unhappy with playing time? But maybe that's where the injury thing comes in to balance things out. I have no idea. I just know that in front of my face when I look at their roster, they're just absolutely stacked with talent. Really like the John Wall sign. Got him for cheap. Even if he could give you 50% of what John Wall was, that gives you a point guard who could get to the basket and make some plays for 15 to 20 minutes. If he gives you more, that gives you a pretty dang useful piece that is a good foil for Reggie Jackson, since he's more of like a shooter than a playmaker. So really high on the Clippers. They're going to be awesome. Hate to say it, but I'm rooting for them to make some noise this year just because I'm a big Kawhi and PG fan.
Yeah, I didn't have them as the 4 team. Part of that's probably bias, of course. The main thing is just injuries. I just don't trust Kawhi. I think they're going to be very, very, very careful with Kawhi Leonard and probably Paul George too, to be honest, because of all that wing depth. I think it's one of those things. They don't really care about home court advantage. They're just looking to make the playoffs with avoiding the play-in and making sure their guys, mainly Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, John Wall, are going to be healthy for that playoff run. That being said, John Wall is going to be a nice addition for them. He's going to add, a third, if you want to say a third star to this team, and they got him for basically nothing, which is pretty incredible. I really like Reggie Jackson, what he offers offensively. I think he's still improving, which is pretty cool at 32 years old. Luke Kennard is still here. Obviously a very good defensive player.
One of the best shooters in the league, Luke Kennard.
Yeah, 100%.
And everyone hated on that contract he got too, but hey, it looks good now.
Yeah, the contract is, I'm still not 100% sold on it, but I think it's one of those things when you're looking to win now, you got to pay somebody like that. There's nothing wrong with it. We were all pretty pissed off at the time. I don't know what the Blazers were thinking, I guess, other than tank. I really don't know why they gave up Norman Powell, but Norman Powell is he's just a great 2 guard. He makes so much sense at a 2 position, so much better than when he was playing the 3 in Portland. He's going to be great next to Wall or Jackson. Terrence Mann is here. Amir Coffey is here. Nicholas Batum, Robert Covington, Marcus Morris. Like my freaking god, Brandon Boston is here too, who could be intriguing. Like they just have so many freaking wings. It's unfair, and that's not even mentioning maybe the best two wings in the league in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You know, Kawhi Leonard certainly, Paul George probably not, but he's certainly up there. All-star, all NBA kind of player. Like they're loaded. I just don't have the faith in them. Not necessarily even injuries, just the fact that I think they're going to rest quite a bit because all they care about is being ready for that playoff run. And I think the team that's going to finish above them is going to have a little bit more certainty, is going to go for it a little bit more in the regular season. So that's why I have them at 5 instead of 4.
Right after I say this, you go on with your next pick, but I love Norman Powell. He's in that top 20. That's all I'll say. But go on with your next team.
I also love Norman Powell, and it's so good to see him with a perfect fit. Like, I think this is a really good fit for him. The team I have it for, people are probably wondering when they're going to come off the board, the Phoenix Suns. The main thing I looked at, and because when it came to them and the Clippers, because originally when I had it, I had the Clippers at 3, the Suns at 4, and the Nuggets at 5. I realized that was way too low on the Nuggets, I think, because of what they've added. And then I looked at it and I was like, well, the Suns finished with 64 wins last year, and the Clippers finished with 42. Obviously, injuries are a big part of that, and the Clippers didn't have Covington and Powell for that, and John Wall for most of the season. But I still think that's a big, big hill to climb. That's 22 wins. I think that's a big hill to climb. And the Suns, realistically, have not actually lost anybody. The main thing they've probably lost is just their spirit after that Mavericks series. But I don't think that's necessarily a big concern. You know, I think this team, obviously, I guess the main piece you could say they've lost is Jay Crowder. He's not necessarily out the door yet, but it's pretty much concerned. It's pretty much considered he's not going to be playing for this team this year. Of course, though, somebody like Jay Crowder, you're going to get a piece back, so I'm not necessarily concerned at it. Chris Paul is still here. I really hope that they look to rest him more this season. The issue is, Cameron Payne is still the backup, which last year looked a lot better. After his year last year in the playoff run, it's a little bit more concerning, but during the regular season, I think he'll be fine. I really like Frank Jackson if we keep him as a third guard. I really liked him on the Pistons last year. He showed a lot to me. He's still a young guy. Devin Booker, the best 2 guard in the league, in my opinion. All N.B.A. talent. He's still, only 27 years old. Or he will be at the start of the season. He's a superstar. There's no other way to put it. I don't think anybody can consider him otherwise. Landry Shamet is still his backup. I'm not sure how much longer because I think he might be tagged in a Crowder trade. Mikal Bridges is here. I'm really excited. The main thing why I don't have them even higher is that, Vonnie Williams has talked about Mikal and Cam Johnson at the 3 and 4. They're going to get chances to create their own offense, which I really, really love because we need to do that for them to be for us to be ready for the postseason. When Chris Paul gets double teamed and Devin Booker gets trapped and that kind of stuff, we need them to be able to do that. So I'm really excited. And I also think having 2 young players at the 3 and 4 is just going to be fun. Torrey Craig is their main backup. Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, I know I shit on him earlier in the video, but as a bench player, he's not bad. I really hope we get to see a lot of Ish Wainwright. The question really is the backup 5, I guess. DeAndre Ayton's obviously back. His whole relationship with the team is in question, and some preseason interviews have led for some speculation. I think he'll be fine. I just really hope we feed him this year and make him the clear number 2 option. But we have options behind him. Bismack is back. Excited for that, I guess. He's a solid. At worst, he's a 3, which is fine, a 3rd-string center. Jock Landale, I really liked what I saw from him last year from the Spurs, so I wouldn't be mad at all if he ends up winning that backup center job. And then, of course, Dario is back, which is really exciting.
He looked great the other night, man, when I was watching y'all.
Yeah, the question really is he athletic enough to play the 4? Be the backup 4 behind Johnson and give us a different look at the 4 with some size. I don't really know, but he was maybe the best backup center in the league before he tore his ACL in the finals. And so hopefully if he can return to that form, it's a really big addition. We lose JaVale, obviously, but we still have size with Bismack and Jock, and then Dario offers us that stretch 5 with the shooting, and he's also a great passer as well. So I just think we were too good of a team last year that I don't think we're going to fall to the 5 seed. That's just personally my opinion.
It's weird because like I'm inclined to agree with you, especially considering I had y'all as my most overlooked team. But like I said, when I started doing this list, that's when it really got harder. And I do have y'all 5. It didn't feel great. It's almost similar to the top 5 in the East, where it's like I think this thing is going to be so close, personally, that if you told me the Suns were top 3, I wouldn't be surprised. I just personally liked how some of these teams added to their team, whether it be through getting people back from injuries or free agents. I know Grizzlies was more through the draft, so that's just going to be internal improvement. But I still like y'all a whole heck of a lot. I think y'all will win a boatload of games. Like you said, Devin Booker's a star. Something cool you mentioned when you listed y'all starting 5. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. 4 of those guys were guys that y'all drafted. So that's pretty cool to see the development that has taken place. Like, 4 y'all's guys are in the starting lineup. So just cool to see. So I guess my number 6 is going to be my second team, I guess. I don't know how many teams I have, Patrick. It's the Mavericks.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, it's almost the opposite of what I was saying. Like, I was a bit higher on them than when I started doing the list. That is funny how I kind of like the Mavericks and you like the Heat, and they have that rivalry. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. We've talked about the Mavericks a decent bit. They lost Brunson for nothing. That hurts. They got Christian Wood for barely anything. That helps. Luka's Luka. If he gets injured, things could get really, really ugly. If he doesn't get injured, things could look really, really good. So that's why I'm somewhere in the middle and have them at 6, avoiding the play-in but making the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't really have any complaints at this point. I think it's one of those things, just there's a little bit of uncertainty with Brunson being gone. That's why they don't jump the top 5. I mean, the real question is, I guess they could jump the Clippers if injuries hit for the Clippers, or they could jump the Suns if all hell breaks loose with the whole relationships and stuff. Mm-hmm. I just don't have the faith in them because of the Brunson loss. Dinwiddie's going to get into the starting 5, obviously, which is going to be fine. It's just the depth. I also don't have a whole lot of faith in Dinwiddie's health. I really hope he stays healthy. Luka is obviously the de facto point guard, but he plays like the 2, I guess, during the regular season more so. Tim Hardaway Jr. will fill that scoring role off the bench. I just don't like it as much as Brunson. I also don't think there's much ball handling, which is a concern. Josh Green, cool player off the bench. I mean, just in terms of just defensive ability, but he doesn't really offer much offensively. Bullock still at the 3. Finney Smith is probably still at the 4, which I like. The question is at the 5, is it going to be Powell? Is it going to be Wood? Is it going to be JaVale McGee? From what I've seen in the preseason, it looks like Powell is still starting at the 5, and he pretty much plays about 5 minutes and then it's done for the entire game. Maxi Kleber is still here as well. So it is interesting to see, do they decide to go big with Kleber or Wood at the 4? I would assume Christian Wood and then Finney Smith at the 3, and then I don't know. There's just a lot of intrigue. I just, behind Finney Smith and Bullock, I don't see the wings as much. And then also I just don't like their guard rotation besides Luka and Dinwiddie, to be quite honest. And I think that's a big reason why they were successful last year. So I think it's one of those things they might struggle a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a trade at the deadline to add a 3rd ball handler.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it's a great point that Dinwiddie has been so injury prone the past couple of years. And dude, if both of them are injured, what are they even going to do? Who's going to dribble for them? That could be really bad. Christian Wood might actually be. Is it crazy to you? I know defense is a thing, fit's a thing, but I feel like there should be an effort to have Christian Wood be starting and maybe just have their minutes so he's playing when Luka's not off as much. I don't know. He's one of their best 5 players. I guess you could have said the same thing about Hero with the Heat last year, but I don't know, man. I feel like Wood should get his start at some point throughout the year, personally.
Yeah, I tend to agree just because I look at their other options.
Yeah.
Like Dwight Powell is the most all-around center, I guess, as disgusting as it sounds to say that.
I would say JaVale McGee is their best all-around.
It's just one of those things with JaVale. He can get exploited on the perimeter the most. I mean, his offensive rebounding and his size is why, but he's about to be, actually, he is 34 years old, so he's only getting older, and also, like, his stamina isn't the best.
True.
In terms of him or Powell, I'd probably say JaVale, to be honest. I just think start Christian Wood and just, you brought him in. The offense is going to be great. The defense might be a bit of a struggle, but, like, I just think he offers way more than Dwight Powell.
Yeah, it feels like what he offers on offense is going to outweigh what he doesn't bring on defense to me. Maybe I'm wrong there. I'm in no position to make choices over Jason Kidd, but that's just what I think. But who's your number 7 then?
My number 7 team is another active team in the offseason. It's Timberwolves here.
Okay.
Looking at teams that were below them, there was one team that I considered, really 2 that I really considered, but I just feel like the Timberwolves are going to be here. They were the play-in champions, as we like to say. Not really, but they won the N.B.A. finals last year in the play-in. They won 46 games last year, so like they were not a bad team at all, and they've, I think, pretty clearly improved with Rudy Gobert, multi-time defensive player of the year, probably the best rim protector in the NBA, probably the best rim protector we've seen in a long time. That's going to be nice. The question is his fit with Towns. Obviously, Towns is probably the best perimeter shooting center maybe ever, to be quite honest. I mean, it's one of those things, he's getting discussed in best shooter ever. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but in terms of as a big with the shooting ability, that's what's going to make this fit interesting. I think he'll be fine, especially in the regular season. It might get a little bit hectic at times, but I think it'll be fine. On the boards, it's going to be scary for other teams. Naz Reid is still off the bench, which is good. Eric Pascal is here. Jaden McDaniels, who's a great defender. Kyle Anderson, this is where his landing spot was. They have a ton of just big players, which is interesting. Anthony Edwards is still here at the 2. I think everybody loves Anthony Edwards, what he brings to the league. Such a
Curtis
exciting
Wilkins,
young player.
You mean?
Yep, Kermit.
Or Kermit. Curtis.
Kermit Wilkes, yeah. Sounds exactly like a damn 2K.
I don't even know what I said anymore.
Auto-generated player, but Anthony Edwards is nice. I think the question is really at point guard, D'Angelo Russell. I think he's perfectly fine. I just don't think he's necessarily good enough to launch this team into being a top 4 seed, but he's fine there. Jordan McLaughlin's the backup, apparently an analytics god. I don't necessarily see it myself, so I think that's really where the concern is at point guard. But the rest of this team I like quite a bit, so I think they're just a little bit better than the teams that are going to be below them, and also don't have the injuries concern as much either.
And they have PJ Dozier, so they're going to win the title.
And they have AJ Lawson, another South Carolina guy.
Oh really,
they should be. Yeah, he's only on a 2-way, but I do like AJ Lawson. They're actually similar body types, not similar players, but Austin Rivers is here too, which is interesting. Bryn Forbes, I didn't even mention that. So
they have my favorite bottom end of the bench players, I think. Well, obviously besides the Clippers, but yeah, no, I mean, I've been really high on the Timberwolves. Surprisingly, I had them 8, but it's mostly because I'm high on a certain team that you probably know. I wouldn't be surprised if they got above the Mavericks with us talking about them just now. Just that depth all around is a lot better. Obviously, the top end talent is no Luka, but you got tons of dudes all around that could do a little bit of everything. Like you said, D'Angelo Russell isn't like the best high tier point guard you want to have, but for all the talent they have, he's fine.
The main
I think
concern,
they'll be good.
Main concern I have is spacing. I do worry about that. I assume Jaden McDaniels or Torian Prince is going to start at the three over Kyle Anderson, but I still am not too confident in their spacing. Doesn't matter who really starts at the three, so that's my main concern.
Yeah, it's a fair concern, but definitely one of the ones on my radar, as I think they were last year when we talked. Now they're even more so. And sorry, I just have to bring up one more thing about him because I thought about it when we were talking about him. How, like, when the Gobert trade happened, everyone's like, y'all are rushing towards a star. Anthony Edwards is 21. Well, I could spin that and go, like, even though they could extend him soon or within a year, like, he's only getting 10 million a year now because he's still on his rookie deal. So they went ahead and got a guy that made a bunch of money while he's still on the cheap. So I feel like makes I don't know. That's what I have to say to that. My next pick is the New Orleans Pelicans, who I had one spot above them just because I had my breakthrough moment, man, when I was thinking of this list. Just like, yeah, I've been high on the Pelicans this past year. Am I actually going to go all the way? And I'm like, it's funny that going all the way is putting them as eighth seed in the West, but that's how crazy the West is this year. But I believe, man, I believe Zion looks great. If they could add Zion and the injuries aren't as bad, like, to what they had last year, that's just absolutely insane. Brandon Ingram's one of my favorite players. Loved what they did in the offseason. My guy Jose Alvarado has been learning how to shoot from my guy Devontae Graham. I saw him shoot the other day. I said, that looks like Devontae. But Jose could actually play defense. I know you would dispute that, but that's why we're different people. So yeah, Pelicans, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy. Talk about wings. They got two great ones in last year's draft that I think could contribute already. Herb Jones has already proven to. Yeah, Pelicans really deep, really good. Could be higher than 8. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I had them as the 9 seed. I do have a team above them, which is part of our little game we played a couple weeks ago. I had to hold my word. But yeah, I like their offseason a good bit. I really like Dyson Daniels. With that being said, I don't necessarily think he's going to contribute a ton this season. I do think on the defensive end, as a defensive stopper, yes. But I think it's one of those things in a few years, it's going to be really scary having him as a guard with this team with the defense already of Herb Jones. I really like Larry Nance as a depth piece, whether that's at small ball 5 or at the 4. I think it's a good piece for them to have. Brandon Ingram, obviously we talked about, is really he's one of those guys. I gained so much respect for him because of that postseason run against the Suns. He played his heart out through injuries and stuff like that. CJ McCollum, having him the whole year is going to be huge.
Didn't even mention him.
Yep, huge piece for them, whether he's at the point guard or the 2. I think he probably starts at the point guard. So, it's one of those things. He's going to thrive either way. He's like the vet for this team. The other vet for this team, Jonas Valanciunas at the 5, is solid enough. It's one of those things. I think that might be where they can improve. Obviously, Valanciunas is great on the offensive glass, but I think a more modern NBA center. But I just don't see how they would necessarily accomplish that with the money Valanciunas is making. And they'd also have to give up a lot of their picks. But he's fine for what he does. Jackson Hayes is here. I'm not a huge fan of Jackson Hayes, but he is here as well.
I haven't been either, but I do have to say, like, just because I've been doing a comb through of, like, last year's playoffs, and obviously we've been talking about watching preseason. I don't know. He excites me a bit he seems like an asshole in real life, don't get me wrong, but as a player, kind of excites me the fit around that team. Like, he flies, man, to get those, like, putbacks and alley-oops. So yeah, kind of like him.
Yeah, I was more just talking about his character.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
His stuff off the court. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of him on the court either, but it's all good. I mean, he's not gonna make or break this team. Herb Jones, probably my favorite player on this team. I think everybody likes Herb Jones. How he just kind of broke onto the scene last year and became their version of Mikal Bridges. Excited to see if he can develop on the offensive end more, because if he can, that's going to be pretty scary to see. So yeah, there's a lot of upside. Obviously, the main piece that is the biggest name on this team for sure. Zion Williamson, his health. It's a big question mark. I don't really know. It's one of those things. If I could guarantee he'd be healthy, I'd probably have them as the 8 seed. I just can't, and because of that, I'm going to have them at the 9 seed, which is a bit which is a bit critical considering who I have above them. But I just believe I'm very excited to watch them, and I really hope they take a step forward and maybe get that 6 seed above like the Mavericks and the Timberwolves. I just don't see it at this point.
I think you said a name earlier. I think you meant to say Toothless. That was such a good meme, man. Yeah, no, I'm with you all the way. I really hope they could be higher, but West is brutal. So then who was that? Your 9, who you're alluding to? I'm guessing it starts with an L.
Yep, I hope they take a lot of L's this season, but I do have the Los Angeles Lakers. As we talked about, we had a pod a couple weeks ago with the higher or lower game and that kind of stuff, and I said the Lakers would finish above the Pelicans, so I'm holding true to my word. I haven't necessarily seen a ton in the preseason necessarily suggest that that's necessarily going to change. I will say Dennis Schroeder getting added is kind of nice to see. Help my opinion a little bit. They are overloaded with guards. Kendrick Nunn, Patrick Beverley, Russell Westbrook, Dennis Schroeder. I think Pat Bev is really the only one to have confidence in playing off ball of that group. Austin Reeves is here. Lonnie Walker is here. Both offer different skill sets. I'm not really sure how you mix and match. LeBron James is here. Obviously, he's getting very, very old at this point, but he is still an incredible talent. Maybe the best passer in the league. That could be disputed, obviously, but he's certainly up there. I think Juan Toscano-Anderson's a nice little piece to add, not necessarily because of his production or his talent level, but he's a hustler. He's going to add, I think, some culture to this team, which might help. The big question mark, of course, Anthony Davis. It's concerning to see that he's already missing preseason games with back tightness and stuff. That is not a good sign at all for my prediction. I hope that he's able to turn that around and actually have a somewhat healthy season. I just really don't know. I do also think LeBron's going to have a more healthy season, even though he is almost 40 years old. I just think he will. I don't know where that confidence necessarily comes from, but I have a little bit of confidence there. I also like Thomas Bryant at the 5. I think that's a better piece than what they've had in the past couple of years. So I'm kind of excited to see that fit. Behind him, not as much. Damian Jones is awful. I watched him with the Suns. He is a terrible, terrible basketball player. So,
people are saying he got better because I thought the same thing from watching him with like y'all and other people, but apparently he's gotten decent the past year or so. So that's what people are saying anyway.
I'll believe it when I see it. When I'm more inclined to believe I'm going to be seeing LeBron at the 5 quite a bit this season, which is fine. It's one of those things. I think Pat Bev and Juan Toscano-Anderson, I think the culture defensively is going to help them. I don't know. And I also have faith in Darvin Ham that he might be able to unlock something in Russell Westbrook, make him more of an effective N.B.A. player. But it's one of those things. I do not see this team being in the top 6 at all. I just have a little bit more faith. I just think they have maybe just a little bit more to get them above the Pelicans. And I also think LeBron's going to be motivated this year after missing the playoffs.
And when you were mentioning big men, I couldn't help but think of who's been so good for them in the preseason, Wyndon Gabriel. If he could carve out a role, he seems to be a pretty good high flyer finisher around the rim. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'm not too high on the Lakers. We'll probably end up doing a Lakers podcast with Brandon before the year starts, but not too high on them. And we've talked about them a decent amount. So I'll move on to my 10th seed, who we still need to talk about a decent amount, the Kings. I really wish it were their year to make the playoffs here, but West is just too loaded, man. I really like this Kings team, dude. Like, I really do. But it's just too tough unless they just end up surprising everyone.
Yeah, so I had them at the 10 seed as well, which It's one of those things, obviously, because of the West, you're kind of like, well, it's 10 seed. I think it's very exciting for them if they make the 10 seed. I also expect them to do it because of the teams around them. You look at the teams that finished above them last year. The Jazz, I would be surprised. I would be very surprised, let's put it that way. And then the Spurs, I would be even more surprised. So I think it's definitely a great opportunity for the Kings, and I honestly think they should be the favorite for the 10 seed based off of who we've already picked. Um, I just noticed Kent Bazemore's on this team, which is making me reconsider my thought process. But we will avoid that. De'Aaron Fox is still at the one. Exciting player. Obviously, he's been in the league now for a little bit, but he's a solid NBA point guard. He'll get the offense going. Still one of the most athletic players in the league. Excited to see more of Davion Mitchell, defensive ability. Sorry.
No, you're good. I just wanted to say something on De'Aaron Fox real quick, because you know we were gonna do the big Kings breakdown. Something I had in my notes that I'll just say right now is like De'Aaron Fox. He had some ridiculous, because you know we think of him as like a driving point guard, athletic. Obviously, that's what he is. But when you look at the numbers, it like really reinforces that, man. Like 70-something% of his makes come from when he drives the basket. Like only him and Ja are in that echelon. He's even above Ja. So like it is crazy. What just how devastating he is getting to the basket.
I didn't actually know that. It doesn't surprise me now that you think about it, but it's a very interesting statistic for sure.
Right.
I really like the pieces they've added in their rotation. Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, those are going to be two nice pieces, especially scoring wise, to go along with the defense of Davion Mitchell. Terrence Davis is still there, like him, solidly. Kent Bazemore is there, less so. Harrison Barnes is here. I like Harrison Barnes quite a bit. You know, he's the type of guy I have interest the Suns getting to be the 4, but I think he's a very good complementary piece to what they have around them. The question mark I really have is the defense at the 4 and 5. Keegan Murray, I hope, is going to be able to help with that, but it's a lot to ask of from a rookie to necessarily provide that physicality and defense. Sabonis is obviously the main guy in those two positions. I think he starts at the 5. It's just a question mark of course, his defensive fit, same issue the Pacers had with him and Miles Turner. That being said, he offers so much offensively that it's completely worth it, I think, for a team like the Kings. And I think that's a big reason why they're going to take that jump and make the play-in this year. I also think somebody like Metu, I think, could be a piece that can kind of play that defense next to him. Obviously, offensively, less so, but you have somebody like that. Trey Lyles, they experimented with that a little bit, him and Sabonis together. Not necessarily too excited about that. So it's just going to be interesting to see who they play at the 3, 4, and 5. But I'm very excited about their guard rotation for sure. And I think they're better than the teams below them.
Wasn't Trey Lyles who the Nuggets traded Mitchell for? Because back in that 2017 draft, they traded the pick that would be Mitchell for Trey Lyles and like the 20-something pick, I think.
That is a good question. Yes, that is correct.
Gosh, yikes. That isn't that a yikes? That's just what came to mind when you said his name. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I agree with all your points. Defense might not be good enough. I do love Keegan Murray from the looks of it so far, but you're right, he's just a rookie. So, but I do like what the Kings got going on. I hope next year maybe they could make one more little incremental jump, and some other teams could fall behind. But I just don't think it's their year yet. So I'm assuming you have the other team we talked about a few episodes ago at this spot, or do you have someone different?
It's a bit of a question mark, I hate to say. Not really sure. But I think the team, it's one of those things I'm just not very excited about any of the remainder of these teams in terms of actually winning games. But I think the Trailblazers just make the most sense at this position. The main reason for that is Damian Lillard is hopefully going to be completely healthy and able to play most of the season. The overall star talent is why that's going to happen, why they're going to be probably the 11th seed. They could challenge the Kings. I just don't see it. I just don't like their roster construction in terms of wings necessarily. Gary Payton is a nice little piece to have, but it's one of those things I feel like he's going to be utilized too much as a 3 and a 4 when he's should be the 2 guard next to Payton more than anything. Anthony Simons, obviously, very exciting player. What is his role going to be? Do they try and use Lillard and him together, which would be great on offense, but not so good on defense? I'm not too sure. Shaden Sharp is here. I kind of like Shaden Sharp, obviously, but he is an incredibly young player, one of the youngest players in the league. I think his contributions are more to come down the line than this year. But it's mainly that thing at the 3. I really don't know what their plan is. I'm assuming it's going to be Josh Hart, which I very much like Josh Hart as a player, just not really as a 3. He's more of a 2 in my mind. Jeremy Grant at the 4 is a nice addition for sure. Also considering what they gave up for him, which was not much at all. I think it's the kind of player they could have used a long time ago. I mean, he's still going to be a valuable player for this team for sure. So I like that. Nasir Little there as well. I'm a big fan of Nasir Little. Hope to see him continue to grow. At the 5, Yusuf Nurkic is still there. You know, it's kind of, I don't want to say mediocre. He offers physicality, obviously, which is exciting, but his injury history, because of how big he is a concern. He fouls out a lot of the games, you know. It's just kind of a mediocre piece there at the center. Drew Eubanks is being brought back as the backup. He was promising in the minutes he played last year. So I like obviously Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, the scoring punch there. Jeremy Grant is the third option. I just don't have faith in their defense at all, and I have more faith in the Kings' depth and roster construction, and that's why I have the Kings above them.
Not to step on MIP, which obviously we will be doing another night. But Simons is up there for me, man. I know they'll be lower in the standings, but it's not like MIP is always people in the upper echelon or anything. But that guy, he could shoot and he could score like crazy. He's one of the hottest flamethrowers we have in the league. Like Blazers, you know, when we were talking about the madness of like the Pacers and other teams, Blazers is like one of the mad teams I would actually watch for fun. But I'm with you, like still have them in this range, like lower part of the West. You don't think you'll be catching much of them on League Pass?
It's debatable. I mean, Damian Lillard and Simons is worth watching. Yes, they're on the fringe. That's all I'll say.
Fringe is fair. By the way, I ordered some Damian Lillard shoes today, so that's something. So my 12th pick, you're gonna like this one. 12 isn't high, but it's high for them. The Houston Rockets. I don't think they'll be one of the worst 3 teams, man. I'm not saying they'll be good or even average or anything. I just like their roster a lot. Jalen Green, obviously, me and you both like him a lot. They just drafted Jabari Smith Jr. And that Tari Eason, dude, I saw some doubt about him, but just so far from Summer League and preseason, the 2 things that don't mean anything, I get it. Look, he's looked really good. They still got Eric Gordon around as a vet. Josh Christopher, talk about flamethrowers. They just got Derek Favors, who's like actually a good big to have, and then Sengun, who obviously doesn't do much on defense, but his offense is amazing. But Jabari Smith will kind of cover some of that up. I don't know. I really like what the Rockets are doing. I wish the Hornets could have executed their rebuild like this. What do you think?
I like the young talent on this team. I just disagree. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I do think down the line, I like their roster construction. You know, I liked the Tari Eason pick at the time. I think he's a good fit. I like Jabari Smith, the value they got getting him at 3. I really like that as well. I just don't think, I'm just looking at their roster compared to the team I have above them, and I just don't necessarily see it. One of the things is a lack of a true point guard. I know Kevin Porter Jr. is kind of that at this point. I just don't really have much belief in him at point guard. I think that's where they need to improve the most. So that's just a personal bias. Of
Imagine
course.
if they got Scoot Henderson. Oh my goodness, that would just be unfair.
Oof.
That would just
Yeah,
be unfair.
that would be a very nice fit for sure. But yeah, Jalen Green, obviously exciting to see him have a second year. I think he got unfairly treated a lot by the media. He's going to be fine. And then Jabari, Sengun. There's exciting pieces. I just think in terms of top end talent, I just don't necessarily see it compared to the team I have above them.
And that would be,
as weird as it sounds, it's going to be the Utah Jazz.
I knew it. But I honestly, I will say before you make the case, I probably should have had him above the Rockets, but go on.
Yeah, it was just one of those things because, I'm just, Gobert's gone, Mitchell's gone, Bogdanovich is gone. You're just like, damn, this team is ass. Royce O'Neal's gone. I'm actually looking at their roster. Like Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley.
Yep.
I mean, THT, whatever. Colin Sexton is here. Rudy Gay, Stanley Johnson, Lauri Markkanen, Vanderbilt. Center, ain't gonna lie, center is kind of, your boy Cody Zeller's there. Kelly Olynyk is there, who I'm not a big fan of. But to be quite honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt just starts at the 5. But Mike Conley, Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Colin Sexton. I just like that guard rotation a lot more than what the Rockets have, and that's why I have them here. I just think they have enough talent. This, of course, is to be determined because it's likely a lot of these players aren't here when halfway through the season. But at this point in their roster construction, I just think they're going to win too many games to be in consideration with the bottom 3 teams.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there even a point in discussing these last year? I have Spurs as my next. Both of these teams are going to be trash. They're tanking hardcore. Well, Spurs and Thunder. What do you have? I don't have much to say. They're just going to be tanking. They're going to be really bad.
Pretty much. I do think the Thunder are funner to watch.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. If Greg Popovich wasn't the coach of the Spurs, I'd say they'd 100% be last. I just don't know because it's Greg Popovich and he just wins games. I really don't know, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, because the Thunder, I would have been not saying not tanking record, but I would have been a little higher on if they hadn't just lost Chet. And didn't SGA go out too with injury?
I haven't noticed that. Let me see if I can find anything on that.
He injured his ankle recently, but yeah, I don't know. And then the Spurs is just amalgamation of young prospects and I was trying to be generous, but yeah, like you said, Greg Popovich, he might get them enough wins to be above the Thunder. Who knows? It'll be a glorious tankathon. That's all I know. So yeah, shoot, we did East and West. I guess I should recount the our draft picks for the record. So East, this is our joint standings for the N.B.A. 2022-2023 season. 1 Sixers, 2 Bucks, 3 Celtics, 4 Heat, 5 Raptors, 6 Cavs, 7 Nets, 8 Bulls, 9 Hawks, 10 the Knicks, 11 Wizards, 12 Pistons, 13 Magic, 14 Hornets, and 15 Pacers. I feel like our East list is pretty on point, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just the clusters of teams. The top 3, I would say maybe 4 if you want to include the Heat. Then that 4 to 6, and then the play-ins. It's kind of mix and match. But I really think the top 10 is it's not necessarily undisputable, but I think it is, to be quite honest. The top 9 for sure is undisputed.
100% agree. I'm even with you on the 10. I think Hawks Knicks seals that gate right there. But then our West ended up being 1 Warriors, 2 Nuggets, 3 Grizzlies, 4 Clippers, 5 Suns, 6 Mavericks, 7 Timberwolves, 8 Pelicans, 9 Lakers, 10 Kings, 11 Blazers, 12 Rockets, 13 Jazz, 14 Spurs, and 15 the Oklahoma City Thunder. Um, I don't know. Are we getting spicy with that list? Maybe Nuggets and Grizzlies is too high for some people's likings.
I don't think it's too spicy to have the Grizzlies that high.
Okay.
I don't think the Nuggets are going to be the 2 seed, but I know you're very high on the Nuggets, so I don't hate it at all. I think it's really about the Suns, Clippers, Nuggets, and that 3 to 5 range. Interesting to see how that goes. And then, of course, Mavericks, Timberwolves, Pelicans, I guess technically Lakers, which one of those teams makes it out of the play-in, or which one of those teams avoids the play-in. And then, of course, the ultimate tankathon.
Yeah, the West tankathon, I think, will be more spicy. Spicy as in not spicy than the East one. I'm with you. That tier is what I'm looking out for in the West. Might be the number one tier of teams I'm looking out for this year is Mavericks, T-Wolves, Pelicans, Lakers, if we're even accurate in our assessment. Because I'm just interested, are we completely right about the Mavericks? Like, will that depth cripple them, or can they be better than we thought? Can that depth cripple them, and can the Timberwolves and Pelicans get an edge up? Can even the Lakers be way better than everyone thought? Because they were dealing with crazy injuries last year, and if they don't this year, maybe the surrounding talent won't be as much of a problem. This is why you said at the top of the show, the West is a more interesting conversation, because the East, I know it's just going to be a bloodbath in the top 9. It's going to be a game between in between the season, but I really feel like this West could shake out really interestingly depending on how the first couple of months goes.
Yep, agree 100%. And I also think there's just a little bit more, like I said, just the tiers and stuff like that, which some people may not like that, but I kind of enjoy the tiers, the way the West is set up.
I guess one other thing I have to say, because whenever we end up doing our awards picks, we saved our finals pick for then. We keep saying it every year, and I don't mean to keep retreading talking points, but just how talented the NBA is right now, man. Just looking at the top 9 in the West, it would not shock me if one of those teams made the finals, and maybe it should. If the Lakers made it, but it's they still have LeBron and AD, and they're older and injury prone, yes, but that's why it wouldn't shock me if they made the finals. You know what I mean? There's so many contenders right now. It's so awesome to see.
100%, yeah. There's literally 10 teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they were finals teams, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, shoot, man, we are some professional basketball podcasters. Let me tell you what, we did it. Both standings, did it in our way with our draft. It's our podcast, our own thing. As you can tell, the fumes are getting to my head. We gotta close this out, Patrick. What last thoughts? What do you think?
I'm seeing Torrey Craig is starting at the 4 for the Suns tonight. So
excellent.
Yeah.
That's great.
Excellent. I love Torrey Craig, but Cam Johnson is hurt, which kind of sucks.
Well, for anyone who stuck around this long, we thank you. And we hope y'all have as much fun as we do watching the NBA this year. Let's go.